Star Trek, Primitive Passenger, Season 2, Episode 6, Errant Echo 1. The forever and unending soft hum of the Havoc's engines usually lulled Nolan Mercer into a fitful something resembling sleep. But tonight his rest was shattered by the insistent chirp of an incoming transmission. He jolted awake, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. The room's ambient lighting slowly increased, revealing the Spartan quarters he called home. Fuck. It was worse getting shaken out of near sleep than being woken from the silent depths. But really, he rarely saw those silent depths anyway, so fuck. Incoming transmission from Beta Z, Ilara's disembodied voice announced, a hint of concern coloring her usual efficiency. Nolan ran a hand through his disheveled hair, his voice gravelly with sleep. "That's not good. Audio only, please." The desperate voice of Dr. Jovan Lorad filled the room, each word a hammer blow to Nolan's conscience. "Mr. Mercer, it's just that this girl, Nalira Kethrin, she's struggling." When we asked her what happened, all she could say was Mercer before completely breaking down. Nolan's stomach clenched, memories of his brief encounter with the young Betazoid flooding back. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, hunching forward as if to brace himself against the doctor's words. Lord continued, his professional demeanor cracking under the weight of his concern. "She's fine 1 minute, and cutting herself the next. We have to keep her under round-the-clock supervision, and she's slept maybe a few hours since her return." "I'm genuinely sorry, Doctor," Nolan replied, his voice thick with regret. He stood, pacing the small confines of his quarters. "She was probing for the truth, and I guess I let go. I stopped hiding." He hung his head, pain-etching lines across his face. "I never meant to hurt her." There was a pause, filled only by the doctor's ragged breathing. Then Nolan's voice, barely above a whisper. "Why call me, though?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications neither man seemed eager to confront. As Nolan awaited the doctor's response, he gazed out the viewport at the endless expanse of stars, each one a silent witness to another of Nolan's fears coming true. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Dr. Lord's voice crackled through the calm, weighted with desperation. "Because, Mr. Mercer, you may be our last hope." Nolan closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. "I understand. Send me your coordinates as soon as you're ready to move. I'll be there immediately." Less than an hour later, Dr. Lorad uploaded the coordinates, and the Havoc materialized in orbit around Beta Z. Nolan stood rigid on the bridge, steeling himself for what was to come. In a shimmer of light, 3 figures appeared before him. Dr. Jovan Lorad stepped forward first, his tousled salt-and-pepper hair and dark circles under his eyes betraying his exhaustion. He nodded curtly to Nolan, professional decorum barely masking his anxiety. Behind him, Virelia Cavra cut an imposing figure. Her long silver hair was tied back, and her weathered face bore the wisdom of years spent navigating the treacherous waters of others' minds. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, locked onto Nolan immediately. But it was the third figure that made Nolan's breath catch in his throat. Nalira Kethrin, once innocently curious, vibrant, and beautiful, now stood before him, a shadow of her former self. Her frame was gaunt, cheekbones jutting sharply beneath sallow skin. Dark, haunted eyes darted around the room, never quite focusing on anything. Nolan's placid exterior remained intact, but internally he reeled. Guilt crashed over him in waves, threatening to drown him. This was his doing, his carelessness made manifest in the broken form of a young woman who had only sought the truth. Virelia stepped forward. Her hand found Nolan's arm, a gesture of unexpected compassion that made him flinch slightly. He looked at her, confusion evident in his eyes. "A cold exterior doesn't go too far in a room full of empaths, Mercer," Dr. Lorad reminded him, his tone softening slightly. "We can all feel your distress. There's no need to hide it. If I don't hide it, I'll throw myself on the floor and cry." Nolan said into some nothingness inside him, allowing a fraction of his mask to slip. I'm sorry, he managed, his eyes never leaving Nalira's vacant stare. I never meant for this to happen. Varelia's grip on his arm tightened slightly, a silent acknowledgment of his pain. That's why we're here, to make this right, if we can. As they moved toward the medical bay, Nolan couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something far beyond his control, and he wondered, not for the first time, if there would ever be an end to the damage he seemed destined to cause. Being aboard the Havot did little to soothe Dr. Lorad's frayed nerves as he paced the ship's medical bay. His eyes darted frequently to the still form of Nalira Kethrin, her once vibrant features now gaunt and haunted. Months had passed since her fateful encounter with Nolan Mercer, and each day seemed to drag her further into an abyss of fractured memories and relentless anguish. Nolan stood in the doorway, his face a mask of carefully controlled emotion. "How is she?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lorad's shoulders slumped. He let out one more of what seemed to be an endless supply of weary sighs, and pushed his fingers into his disheveled salt and pepper hair. "No change. She hasn't slept in days. When she's conscious, she alternates between catatonia and violent outbursts." He gestured to the restraints on Nalira's wrists, the angry red marks beneath them, a testament to her struggles. The muscles in Nolan's jaw flexed. "I never meant for this to happen. I knew she was working me for Starfleet. I thought I was teaching her a lesson, but—" He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Your intentions are irrelevant now, Mr. Mercer," Lorad said, a hint of bitterness creeping into his tone. "What matters is fixing this. Varelia believes she can guide Nalira through the memories, help her process what she saw. But we need you. It's your mind that broke her after all." Nolan nodded, his eyes never leaving Nalira's face. "Whatever it takes." As night fell, or what passed for night in the artificial cycle of the ship, Nolan retreated to his quarters. He left the door open, a silent invitation he both hoped for and dreaded. It wasn't long before Varelia appeared, her silver hair catching the dim light. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice gentle. Nolan gestured for her to enter, his posture rigid. "I'm not sure that's wise. You've seen what happened to Nalira. I don't want to risk hurting you two." Varelia stepped closer, her dark eyes searching his face. "You're guarding yourself so tightly. I can feel the strain it's putting on you." "It's necessary," Nolan said, his voice flat. "Is it?" Varelia reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek. Nolan flinched, but didn't pull away. "I've spent my life guiding others through their darkest memories, Nolan. I'm not as fragile as you think." Before Nolan could respond, Varelia leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle at first, then grew more passionate as she poured her compassion and understanding into their connection. Nolan resisted for as long as he could. He didn't even realize he'd surrendered, allowing himself to accept the comfort she offered. As they lay together afterward, Varelia traced the lines on Nolan's face. "You carry so much," she murmured. "How do you bear it?" Nolan's laugh was hollow. "You pack it all up and carry it every step." Morning brought a tense atmosphere to the medical bay. Dr. Lorad busied himself with final preparations while Nolan and Varelia exchanged glances heavy with unspoken words. Nalira lay on a biobed, her eyes darting frantically beneath closed lids. "Are we ready?" Lorad asked, his hand hovering over a panel of controls. Varelia nodded, taking her place beside Nalira. "Remember," she said, looking at Nolan, "let us in. Don't try to control what we see." Nolan, on the opposite side of Nalira's frail frame, took a deep breath and closed his eyes. "If I'm hiding anything, it's more from me than from you, but I'll try." Lorad activated the device, and the world fell away. They found themselves in a vast, swirling void. Fragments of memories whirled past, flashes of battles, faces contorted in agony, entire worlds burning. Varelia gasped, momentarily overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what Nolan had experienced. "Nalira," she called out, her voice seeming to echo endlessly. "We're here to help you." A faint cry answered her. They pushed forward, diving deeper into the maelstrom of Nolan's mind. As they progressed, the memories grew darker, more horrific. The Mestat wars loomed before them, a towering monolith of unspeakable atrocities. Virelia reached out, her empathic senses tingling with Nalira's terror. But the closer she got, the more the pressure of Nolan's mind bore down on her. She could feel the tendrils of his anguish wrapping around her, tightening, dragging her deeper into the abyss. Each step forward was harder than the last, her thoughts becoming heavy, tangled with his pain. Fragments of Nolan's life, once distant and fragmented, now swarmed her with visceral clarity. Battlefields strewn with corpses, the deafening roar of orbital bombardments, entire cities reduced to ashes in the blink of an eye. The screams of the dying reverberated endlessly, a chorus of despair that clawed at her very soul. She could no longer tell where Nolan's memories ended and her own mind began. But it wasn't just the grand scale of destruction that overwhelmed her. It was the intimate moments of horror, the face of a child, eyes wide with terror, moments before being vaporized, the despair of a lover left behind as evacuations began, faces contorted in agony blurred together, merging into a tapestry of torment. The Mestat wars loomed larger now, vast planets burning, civilizations crumbling under the relentless march of war. Virelia's breath came in short gasps as she stumbled through planets of devastation. She saw Nolan, standing tall in the eye of the storm, his gaze cold and unflinching as entire species were wiped from existence. The weight of his decisions, the lives he had taken, billions upon billions, pressed against her like a suffocating tide. Her senses reeled, every nerve aflame with the horror of it all. "No," Nolan's voice thundered through the mindscape. Virelia let go. She could feel the black hole of remorse inside him. Not a void, but a crushing weight that devoured everything in its path, leaving him hollow yet overflowing. His guilt became her own, an unrelenting flood of shame and sorrow, and with it came the isolation. An infinite hollow loneliness that gnawed at her from the inside. She tried to call out to Nalira again, but her voice was swallowed by the roar of Nolan's inner storm. Every flicker of light, every shred of hope was extinguished by the ceaseless onslaught of regret and sorrow. Virelia's body trembled as centuries of repressed guilt battered her psyche, a never-ending barrage of choices that had doomed entire species. The horror of it all pulled her under, her own consciousness buckling beneath the sheer magnitude of suffering that defined Nolan Mercer's existence. Nolan shook himself with every ounce of energy he had, finally breaking free. His eyes snapped open. With a Herculean effort of will, he forced himself to push Virelia and Nalira out of his mind. The backlash sent him reeling, his eyes flickering as they rolled back in their sockets. But it was too late. Virelia's compassion, her desperate need to understand and heal, had drawn her into the heart of Nolan's darkest memories. She screamed as the full weight of centuries of horror crashed over her. In the medical bay, alarms blared. Lorad frantically worked the controls, trying to sever the connection. "Their neural patterns are forever changed," he whispered. When Nolan came to, the scene before him was one of devastation. Virelia lay motionless, her once severed eyes now vacant, occasionally darting back and forth as if reliving some private horror. Nalira sat up slowly, her appearance shockingly altered. Her dark hair had turned a stark gray, like Virelia's had been. "What have I done?" Nolan whispered, his voice breaking. Lorad helped Nalira to her feet, his face a mask of concern and confusion. "Nalira, can you hear me?" She turned to him, her eyes now holding a depth and weariness far beyond her years. "I hear you, Doctor," she said, her voice steady. "I understand now. I see everything." She grabbed an Errant rubber band and pulled her hair back in a style mimicking Virelia's. Nolan stumbled to Virelia's side, gathering her limp form in his arms. Virelia, can you hear me?" But there was no response. Only the occasional, silent scream contorting her features gave any indication that she was still alive. As the Betazoid delegation prepared to depart, a heavy silence filled the transporter room. Dr. Lorad supported the now catatonic Virelia, while Nalira stood apart, her prematurely gray hair and distant eyes a stark testament to their ordeal. Nolan stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral. "My ship will return you safely to Beta Z," he said, his voice quiet but steady. Nalira's gaze drifted to him, a mix of emotions flickering across her face. "How thoughtful of you, Mercer," she said, her tone bordering on sarcastic. "Always cleaning up after yourself, aren't you?" Nolan absorbed the barb, allowing a hint of remorse to show. "Nalira, Don't," she interrupted, her voice weary. "Just don't. Your words change nothing." Nolan nodded slowly. "You're right. They won't. But for what it's worth, I truly never intended this outcome." A mirthless smile played at the corners of Nalira's mouth. "Good intentions," she murmured. "They say the path to the void is lined with them." She turned to Dr. Loren. "We should go. I think we've seen enough of Mr. Mercer's universe to last several lifetimes." As the Betazoid shimmered out of existence, Nolan remained still, the emptiness of the room echoing the void within him. Nolan stood in the med bay, watching as the soft hum of the transporter engulfed the Betazoid delegation. Virelia's lifeless body shimmered in the light, her vacant eyes reflecting the weight of his guilt one last time before they vanished. Nalira, now a cold shadow of herself, didn't spare him another glance. In a heartbeat, they were gone, reduced to a glimmering fade of light that blinked out of existence as they materialized on another of his ships. The stillness that followed felt deafening. Nolan's chest tightened, the breath he'd been holding burning his lungs. He clenched his fists at his sides, knuckles white, trying to force himself to stay upright, to stay numb. But the void that had been threatening to consume him since the moment this ordeal began finally surged forward, and there was no stopping it. A shudder ran through him, and he stumbled back, gripping the edge of the med bay console for support. His head dropped, and before he could stop it, the weight of everything crushed him. His knees buckled, his body slumping down against the cold wall. He gasped, choking on the air that felt too thick, too suffocating. He squeezed his eyes shut, fighting back the torrent of emotion. But it was too late. The memories, the guilt, the utter devastation tore through him, unstoppable. A low, guttural sound escaped his throat, a broken cry he hadn't meant to let out. For a few agonizing seconds, the facade of strength shattered, and Nolan Mercer, the man who carried galaxies on his shoulders, was reduced to nothing more than the sum of his regrets. His fingers dug into the floor, jaw clenched as he let the darkness crash over him. The faces of those he had failed, Nalira, Virelia, seared his mind in rapid flashes. Kindness and compassion had been destroyed because of him. This loss, most of all, pressing down, suffocating. And then, just as suddenly, it was over. The moment passed like a violent storm that had spent its fury. He drew in a ragged breath, forcing the despair back into the deepest recesses of his soul where it belonged. His body trembled, drenched in sweat, racked with pain. He pulled himself upright, slowly, using the medbay console as leverage. Nolan splashed water over his face from the medbay sink, scrubbing away the remnants of his breakdown. The emptiness still clawed at him, but he straightened his spine and pushed it all down. Down where it belonged, where it couldn't reach him. Not now, not yet. Ilara's voice gently broke the silence. "Nolan, what are your orders?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "Set a course for the Cardassian border." He could feel the AI's concern, her hesitation, but she followed his command without question. "Nolan," her voice was soft, uncertain, but he cut her off. "The galaxy gives no fucks, Ilara," Nolan replied, his tone somber but resolute. "Nor dare we." The medbay door slid shut behind him, the cold metallic hiss echoing like the last breath of a dying star. Epilogue. In a darkened room, only the soft glow of several pads scattered across the bed offered any light. The dark shadow in the center is the figure of Nalira Kethrin, her form partially veiled in shadow, her gray hair pulled back tightly, Her face was illuminated by the pad in her lap, displaying reports of early skirmishes between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. Her eyes moved steadily over the screen, absorbing the details with cold precision. To her left, another pad flickered with the title, The Tal Shiar, A Comprehensive History. Brief passages on espionage and betrayal glowed faintly, offering her glimpses into the dark machinations of Romulan intelligence. Next to it, another pad read, Cardassian Politics, filled with charts and figures outlining the intricate power structures of the Union. Nalira's focus shifted between the screens, her expression hardening as she pieced together centuries of conflict and control. The soft light of the pads filled the room, reflecting her transformation. She wasn't simply reading history. She was comparing and calculating against all that she had seen in Nolan's mind. It was all wrong, but she knew she could fix it.